Hello everybody, welcome to Candlekeep's Hearth Tavern. I am Anya of Rogatino. And, yes, I am one of Red Sonja's sisters. On behalf of RPGmodsFan, I will be narrating most of this video, and giving you a walkthrough and DM's guide of the Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale adventure. So, sit back, grab a flagon of mead, or ale, or coffee, and let me tell you the tale of the Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale. The Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale is the 12th adventure in the Candlekeep Mysteries anthology book, which was published in January of 2021. This 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons adventure was written by Kienna. Her adventure is meant for 11th level player characters. To players, I would suggest not to read Miss Shaw's interview in the 36th issue of Dragon Plus Virtual Magazine. Her interview does not reveal too much, but still, let us just say, without getting into spoiler territory, that her adventure is inspired by twists that often occur in Shakespeare's plays.
To be or not to be. That is the question.
Sorry. I mean, yes, yes, but if you don't mind a note, or. To be or not to be.
Try this. To be or not to be, that is the question.
Don't lose focus. To be or not to be, that is the question.
To be or not to be, that is the question.
To be or not to be, that is the question.
To be or not to be.
At the start of the adventure, the adventurers are having a meeting with Rilia Liadon, who is a female human mage, and is a member of the Harpers faction. The Harpers are a semi-secret organization of spellcasters and spies, who covertly oppose any abuse of power, magical or otherwise. Working alone, or in small cells, they gather information throughout Faerun, analyze the political dynamics in each region or realm, and use what they uncover to help the weak, the poor, and the oppressed from behind the scenes. Harpers act openly, only as a last resort. Rilia and the hardy group of adventurers are meeting in Candlekeep. On behalf of the Harpers, Rilia wants to hire the adventurers for 5,000 gold pieces to administer a cure to their corrupted former colleague, a human bard named Arent Quill. Warning, minor spoilers ahead. Your dungeon master may wish to act out and embellish the adventure's introduction part, and make it more dramatic. Thus, it is advised that players should stop watching this video now. So, the job seems simple enough. But, the tricky thing is, to administer the cure, requires Arent to be stabbed with a magically imbued crystal dagger. The other tricky thing is, the Harpers have imprisoned Arent Quill in a demi-plane. The only entrance to the demi-plane is by opening a portal via the Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale book. I wonder, is there anything more to this job than meets the eye?
Hello, my name is Alront. I am the former keeper of tomes. Some time ago, the task of governing Candlekeep has been turned over to the Archmage Janusi. Anyway, my assistant, RPGmodsFan, will now be discussing the adventure itself, and this video will contain spoilers. Unless you are a dungeon master who will be running this adventure for their players, or are a player who already played through this adventure and are watching this video for nostalgia purposes, I would suggest not to watch the rest of this video.
So, I hope you are enjoying the tale of the Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale. Now, this is where the adventure's tale gets interesting. The adventure's synopsis would be as follows. A mad and corrupted bard named Arent Quill has languished in a demi-planar prison for 3 years. The Harpers have now found a cure for his corruption and madness. The adventurers are hired to administer the cure. However, Quill is not the greatest danger that lurks in the prison plane. Unlike other adventures in the Candlekeep Mysteries book, this adventure does have a summary for it. Its summary is displayed on the screen, and I would pause the video here, if you wish to read it. By the wording of this summary, it seems the adventure is more of a railroad adventure, which is not too far from the truth. But, it does make assumptions on what the characters would do. I will re-summarize it, without making too many such assumptions. I would summarize the adventure as follows. The Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale is a demi-plane in a book. One that the player characters are hired, by the Harpers, to enter, for the purpose of curing the corruption on their former agent, Arent Quill, who was imprisoned there, by them. The demi-plane is an idyllic recreation of the Wisteria Vale village, which was Arent's home. It is populated by constructs that very closely resemble its former inhabitants. However, a few days ago, a beholder has materialized into the demi-plane. Arent's manor has 4 paintings that are a set of extra-dimensional rooms. The beholder has imprisoned Arent in one of the paintings, and has created an imposter of him. The other paintings contain foes, or a banquet with magical foods, both fair and foul. The player characters need to defeat the beholder, and free the real Arent. Although, the possibility does exist for the characters to avoid facing the beholder altogether. However, administering the cure requires Arent to be stabbed with a magical crystal dagger. The corrupted Arent seeks to ruin the Harpers, and, unless convinced otherwise, he is unwilling to be stabbed. I will now be going into a little bit more detail on the adventure's main cast of characters. Rilia Liadon is a female human wizard, a member of the Harpers, and is the adventure's quest giver. Before being turned to the dark side, Arent Quill was a fellow Harper, and a friend to Rilia. When Arent turned against the Harpers, they imprisoned him in a demi-plane that can only be accessed through The Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale book. She then brought the book to Candlekeep. Recently, the Harpers have found a cure to Arent's corruption. Rilia then hires the player characters to administer the cure, with a promise of 5,000 gold pieces, if they successfully complete their mission. If Arent is killed, then, Rilia will use the money to resurrect Arent, instead. Arent Quill is a male human bard. He grew up in the small peaceful village of Wisteria Vale, which was located east of Baldur's Gate. The village was destroyed by a cruel lord, and Arent was the only survivor. Soon after this tragic event, he met Rilia, who convinced him to join the Harpers. Short time afterwards, Arent was able to get his revenge on the cruel lord. Arent continued working for the Harpers, and continued to grow more powerful. However, in a battle against an evil archmage, Arent got in contact with the evil crystal artifact, which corrupted him. He was then imprisoned, by the Harpers, in a demi-plane, that is an exact duplicate of Wisteria Vale, before it was destroyed. Unfortunately, a beholder invaded the demi-plane, and it has imprisoned Arent in a painting, which is actually another demi-plane. Oh, and one additional note. As long as Arent remains in Wisteria Vale, he is immune to all damage, and automatically succeeds on all saving throws. However, his immunity is suppressed if he is within 15 feet, or 4.5 meters, of the beholder. Okay, one more thing. Arent does have a teleport spell memorized, but he cannot use it within the extra-dimensional space he is trapped in. Once out, he can use it to teleport anywhere within Wisteria Vale, but not out of it. The beholder, Rene Core, is the de facto villain of the adventure. Rene Core dreamed itself into the Wisteria Vale demi-plane. It believes all of it is of its own creation, including the villager constructs that populate it. Thus, if the player characters do not act too suspiciously, it will believe they are just constructs as well. Rene Core's presence is warping the demi-plane, and is causing erratic weather and strange phenomena to occur. Arent Quill thought he could charm the beholder into revealing information on how to escape the demi-plane. His plan backfired, and the beholder imprisoned Arent in a magical painting. The beholder then created a duplicate of Arent Quill. However, this fake Quill does not have the real Quill's magical abilities. I will now go through the adventure's timeline of events. My apologies, in advance, I will be repeating some things that I have already mentioned before. A few decades ago, Arent Quill led a peaceful life in Wisteria Vale, a small village that was located east of the city of Baldur's Gate. A decade ago, a cruel lord and his retinue visited Wisteria Vale. When the village's hospitality is not to his liking, he has the village burned down, leaving only Arent alive to witness the village's destruction. Before leaving the village, the cruel lord slashes Arent's face with a crystal dagger. Arent vows vengeance. Sometime afterwards, he meets Rilia Liadon, a female human wizard, who is also a Harper agent. Rilia convinces Arent to join the Harpers. With the information provided to him by the Harpers, Arent is able to track down the cruel lord, and is able to take his revenge. Arent, then, continues working for the Harpers. Less than a half-decade ago, Arent Quill battles an archmage, who was turned evil by a crystal that was touched by the evil deity, Cyric. Although Arent defeated the archmage, contact with the crystal has also turned him evil. Arent's thoughts became corrupted and twisted, so much so that he actively sought to ruin the Harpers. The Harpers were unable to cure him. So, 3 years ago, they banished Arent into a demi-plane. The demi-plane is an idyllic recreation of the Wisteria Vale. The portal entrance into the demi-plane is via the Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale book. Although the names have been changed, the book itself is, pretty much, the retelling of Arent Quill's life. For safekeeping, Rilia then brings the Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale book to Candlekeep. 6 days ago, a beholder, named Rene Kaur, dreamed itself into the Wisteria Vale demi-plane. It thinks the demi-plane is its own creation. It has imprisoned Arent in a magical painting, which, in itself, leads into another demi-plane. The beholder, then, created a doppelganger of Arent to impersonate him. Very recently, the Harpers were able to find a cure for Arent's corruption. However, the quote-unquote cure requires Arent to be stabbed with a magically imbued crystal dagger. Rilia hires the adventurers to cure Arent and gives them the crystal dagger. With clues given to them by Rilia, the player characters are supposed to figure out how to activate the portal to the Wisteria Vale demi-plane via the Curious Tale of Wisteria Vale book. However, to me, this does not make logical sense. After all, it was the Harpers who created the book and the demi-plane, and it is the Harpers who are hiring them to cure Arent. Hence, I would skip this puzzle and have the characters enter the demi-plane. They then explore the village and talk to its inhabitants. The inhabitants are actually constructs who look, act, and speak like actual villages. If interviewed, these locals reveal that Arent lives in a manor on the northern side of the village. They also reveal that Arent has not left his manor recently because he has a very important guest, which is Rene Kaur, the Beholder. They describe the Beholder as a floating eyeball with many tentacles, and that each tentacle ends with another eyeball. To allay the village's justifiable concerns about his guest, Arent's imposter is planning a party for that evening, and has invited everybody in the village to meet the Beholder. As the characters explore Arent Quill's manor, they can avoid the gaze of the Beholder. They can learn from Quill's notes that the Beholder dreamed itself into Wisteria Vale from the Underdark, and that Quill has been trying to charm it into revealing how to escape the demi-plane. Eventually, the adventurers should be able to learn that the Beholder has imprisoned the real Quill in a magical painting. Although Arent wants to be free of the Beholder, at the same time, because of his corrupted state, he does not trust the Harpers, and is hard to convince that being stabbed with a magical crystal dagger will cure him. So, depending on the player character's actions, quite a number of scenarios are possible. A battle with the Beholder is highly likely. However, if they are careful, the characters may avoid battle with the Beholder. The characters may convince Arent to be cured. Otherwise, a battle with him will, most likely, ensue. Now that we have discussed the adventure's synopsis, characters, and timeline, I will now walk through the adventure's maps. Displayed is the map of the Wisteria Vale demi-plane. The map is probably easier to decipher with the areas labeled, as they are now. This demi-plane was created by the Harpers for one purpose only, to imprison Arrant Quill while they devise a cure for his corruption. The Viridian Forest encircles the village. If one walks far enough into the woods, in one direction, they end up on the other side of the forest, approaching Wisteria Vale, as if they had walked in a giant loop. Everything in Wisteria Vale is bright and colorful, and tailored to keep Arrant entertained. Time passes differently in the demi-plane. Each day here equates to 3 days on the material plane. Hence, to Arrant, he has been imprisoned here for 1 year, instead of 3 years. Because of the nature and purpose of the demi-plane, any spells used to try to escape will fail. The only way to leave is to cure or kill Arrant Quill. The Harpers created constructs out of wooden mannequins to populate Wisteria Vale. Magic makes them look, act, speak and behave like normal villages. Building number W3 is the Blossom's Rest Tavern. It is run by Ulrich, a construct that looks like a male dwarf, and Daphne, a construct that looks like a female elf. Building number W4 is the Silks and Souls Shop. It is run by Josephus Lovett, who looks like a male human, and Henrietta Storm, who looks like a tiefling. Josephus is the village's tailor, and Henrietta is the village's cobbler. Because of the upcoming Quills party, Josephus will try to get the player characters to have fine attire made for them. Likewise, Henrietta will try to get the characters to have fancy shoes made for them. All of which will be ready an hour before the party at Quills Manor starts. Area number W5 is the village's marketplace. Once in a while, the demi-plane generates a traveling merchant who passes through Wisteria Vale to sell food, fabric, and other goods from quote-unquote outside the village. Building number W6 is Arrant Quill's Manor. It is 2 stories tall and made of white stone. Displayed is the interior map of the manor. The map is probably easier to decipher with the rooms labeled, as they are now. Aside from Arrant and the Beholder, the manor also has a total of 6 sets of animated armor and 2 stone golems. 4 sets of animated armor and 1 stone golem are not tied to specific locations, and, instead, are encountered via random encounters. In addition, the manor has a construct named Damien, who serves as the manor's housekeeper. Also, scattered in various rooms are a total of 4 magic paintings. Each is a gateway to an extra-dimensional space that are interconnected. Each extra-dimensional space is a large cubic stone chamber. On one wall, there will be a window, where the characters have entered from, and can exit back to the manor from. On the other walls, will be doors, that randomly lead to the other extra-dimensional spaces. Oh, although not shown, I assume the manor does have a downstairs wine cellar. Hey, what can I say? I admit, I am a lush. Okay, let's take a tour of the manor, starting with the ground floor. Room number M1 is the lounge. It has 2 paintings. The one over the fireplace is of Arrant and Rilia during their youth. However, the face of Rilia has been defaced. The other painting is a magic painting, depicting a forest. 4 Medusas are hiding in the magic painting's extra-dimensional space. Room number M2 is the kitchen. The manor's housekeeper, Damien, will most likely be found here. Currently, he is preparing food for the party that the fake Quill is hosting for René Core. Room number M3 is the dining room. On the east wall hangs a magic painting depicting a banquet. The painting's extra-dimensional space contains a 15-foot-long banquet table, covered with prepared dishes that look and smell delectable. Consuming the food can have good or ill effects. This room, with its benign and ill effects of its food, is very reminiscent of the dining room in Chateau Amber, of the X2, Castle Amber module. By the way, in the past, RPGmodsFan did do a walkthrough video for the D&D X2, Castle Amber module. So, if interested, please check it out. Link will be in the description section, below. Among the items in the backstage area is Arendt's instrument of the bards, which is also called a Klee lyre. Klee lyres have the magical ability to amplify a bard's charming abilities. They also can store bard spells. Hence, Arendt is unwilling to depart with this powerful magic item. Room number M6 is the Manor's ballroom. 2 sets of animated armor stand guard just outside of the ballroom. The ballroom serves as René Cor's lair. The fake Quills party will take place in this room, and it is the only time that the doors to this room will be unlocked. A 5-member musical band will be performing on stage. If combat erupts, all the guests, waiters, and performers will flee. On the north wall is a portrait painting of Arendt Quill and is covered in slime. This painting is a magic painting, and the real Arendt Quill lies in its extra-dimensional space. The slime prevents Arendt from escaping. The slime can only be scraped off with a magical weapon. Other than the slime-covered window, there are no doors in this space to exit from. But it is possible to enter this space from another extra-dimensional space. Arendt, by his reckoning, has been trapped in here for the past 2 days. Even if the player's characters, somehow, manage to convince Arendt to be stabbed with the magical crystal dagger, he will insist that such an act be performed in the manor itself. After all, he does want to go get his Klee lyre back. Okay, time to tour the manor's upper floor. Room number M7 is the library. This room contains many clues about the adventure, including Arendt's research on beholders. Protecting the room's contents from theft is a stone golem. More clues about the adventure and Arendt's bitter mindset can be found in his bedroom. In the guest bedroom is a magic painting depicting a rock. So I guess there is a rock in the painting's extra-dimensional space. Wait a moment while I go and check. Yep, there is definitely a rock in there. The adventure concludes when either Arendt is killed or stabbed with the magical crystal dagger. If stabbed, he will stagger backward and be momentarily dazed. After regaining his senses, he thanks the adventurers for curing him. Then, the world before them disappears. And they are all falling towards Candlekeep from 1 kilometer above. Ha, ha. Just kidding. Arendt and the adventurers then reappear in Candlekeep, where Rilia will be waiting for them. If René Cor is alive, when the demiplane unravels, the beholder is sent back to its lair in the Underdark. René Cor now holds a deep grudge against the adventurers and plots its revenge against them. In conclusion, the curious tale of Wisteria Vale Adventure offers many interesting social encounters. Your players can interact with fake villages, an imposter, and even a dangerous beholder. If your players enjoy combat encounters, then a battle with the beholder will be inevitable. Quite a humorous moment can occur if any of your players tries to romance one of the animated wooden mannequins in Wisteria Vale. If you have any ideas on how to make this adventure even better, please share them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, from all of us at the RPG Mods fan channel. Hope this video has been informative and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share and comment. We do like feedback. Till next time, we wish you well. Cheers, have a good day, and goodbye.